Yeah.
My favorite.
It's Judd's Hockey Show.
And welcome to Judd's Hockey Show. Judd and AJ, day 2 on our new YouTube channel. If you have not already, like and subscribe, please, as we transfer our content to this channel. Sometimes the content, actually, for a lot of this season, the content's been very positive after a rough October. It's been great. Been talking about a team that acquired Quinn Hughes. Been talking about a team that is one of the best in the National Hockey League. And then sometimes there are bad nights. And last night was definitely a bad night. AJ was at Grand Casino Arena. I watched the game at home, 5-2 Devils win, Age, and that third period, since October, have they had a third period that has been as poor as that period? Because it was 2-1 with a late second period goal by the Devils after 2. So certainly a game that was well within reach. But the third period felt like no contest against a team in New Jersey that had been just playing awful hockey.
Yeah, in the post-game scrums after the game, Marcus Foligno made a comment about, he was asked about the late goal by Andre Palat, I think 8 seconds to go in the second period. He said, yes, that does affect, and that kind of does impact how our mood, and, that was pretty deflating. John Hines felt the exact opposite, and so I'm not sure if they were just on different pages or what. John Hines said, no, that shouldn't matter. That doesn't matter. They could have scored with 10 minutes to go in the second. That doesn't really change our game plan. So maybe a little miscommunication there. But that was the dagger in the heart of the Wild last night. That final shift was just bad. Foligno, he had a couple missed clearances on that shift that the Devils kept in. They extend their zone pressure, similar to how the Wild actually led to their game-tying goal earlier by Ryan Hartman. But then, yeah, just kind of, you felt this kind of, they were expecting the buzzer to come any second, and then, yeah, that's all right, we'll go to the locker room. And it didn't come. And then they find the back of the net, and the Devils were off to the races the rest of the game. That was, I think, I would say the saddest period of hockey I've seen all season by the Minnesota Wild. And I think it's the saddest, Judd, because of the talent on the roster now. Before in October, we saw some pretty bad hockey at times. But they didn't have Quinn Hughes on the ice for them for any of those periods in October. Last night they did. And that was just sad and pathetic. And, I feel bad for the people that spent a lot of money to go out and watch that team on a Monday night, because it was bad. It was a really, really poor effort. First period, I thought that they actually came out and they played pretty well. They created a lot of chances. They were controlling a lot of the play. They just couldn't hit the net. I jokingly tweeted, like, they would have been up by like 4 or 5 goals if the net was twice the size, but fortunately it's not. Yeah. The plexiglass was fearing for its life behind the end wall, and the Wild just kept peppering that throughout the game. And then you saw the Devils sort of just like find their stride late in that second period. They capitalized, and then the response coming out of the locker room for the third was just unexcusable. Now I think it shifts to, you really have to make a statement in a win over the Jets on Thursday, because if you don't bounce back and establish that you're this great hockey team that you should be, then I'm a little worried, because they have been slipping in their play late in that road trip. Now back into their home stand here. It's I'm not like panicked yet, but it is a little concerning, because you're seeing these trends kind of pop up. And last night it's pushing everything to the front.
Yeah, the missed shots. I jotted this down. They talked about this on the telecast. I think they said in the first 17 plus minutes of last night's game, there were 10 missed shots. Tarasenko, I think it was in the second period, missed a wide open net that Foligno passed to him from the slot. I think Foligno might have wanted to shoot that puck in retrospect. But yeah, there was a lot of missed shots. Let's go back to what you said, though, because we talked about this briefly on the Judd's Hockey Show yesterday, and to me, it came to its unfortunate fruition last night, and that is the leakiness that we had seen turned into a flood. There's just in my opinion, there's just some details, neutral zone wise, defensively, that they need to button up, and they're getting away from them a little bit. And you know what? There's a few guys that, okay, that's not great, but it still works. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if this is a byproduct now of Eriksson Ek being out, or it's just a product of, hey, we're so talented. But what I saw last night in the third period was when you aren't necessarily paying full attention to the details of the game, um, it starts to bite you a little bit, and then it bites you a lot. And I thought it bit you a lot. This goes back out also to that second goal late in the second period, with them not being able to clear the puck correctly. It's those things that come back to get you, and more so than the Jets game. That's what I think just needs to be work done, and that's what needs to be kept in mind. Is that there is a formula to win here, and certain guys have the talent to probably overcome not a great game as far as the details, but most of this team does not. And so that's what I want to see, because 5 goals against Volstead last night was not great. But to go back, I don't know about you. How many of those goals do you blame directly on him? Because it felt to me like the defense and the people in front of him
Yeah.
let him down more than he let his teammates down.
I agree with that completely. There might be one that I could say like he probably should have stopped. Maybe two, but there was I think it was the fifth goal was a really bad breakdown, and like one of the few gaffes you're going to see from Quinn Hughes' game.
Yes,
th-
saw that.
which is it's I don't know. Like at that point, that goal doesn't matter because they weren't going to come back. But the thing, if you look over the last slew of games here for them, it seems like it wasn't too long ago where we were hopping on this show and talking about how okay, the Wild win, and all they needed to do was score one, or they needed to score two. On the off chance they had to go crazy and put three in the back of the net, but that would be enough to win because their defense and their goaltending was just so good. Let's look at the past couple games and how many goals they would have needed to win the game. Last night, they would have needed 6. Saturday, they would have needed 4 because they went to overtime. They would have needed 3 against the Kraken. They got it. They would have needed 5 against the Kings. They would have needed 6. I guess 5 in against the Kings in that shootout. You would have needed they scored at 5 against the Ducks back on January 2nd, and then they lost to the Sharks in a shootout 4-3. Before that, they scored 5 to beat the Golden Knights. But it's like you're not winning these games now 1-0, 2-1 anymore. You're clearly regressing with your defensive structure. There's something clearly wrong, and I really don't think that Zach Bogosian is that big of a defensive stalwart to where this should be an issue.
Eriksson Ek's a
But-
bigger loss there than
Absolutely.
Zach Bogosian. I agree with that.
Big
Yeah.
time. And that goes to what we were talking about. Like it's one of those guys where you can talk about his value, but I don't think you really put that like hard, solid number on how good he is and how important he is to this roster until you just pluck him out. And all of a sudden, the past 2 games, you've seen, wow, you really miss having a guy like that center that second line, being so defensively stout, eating these minutes. And yeah, it's just one of those things where one, they need him back. I know John Hines said after the game as well, he was asked about both those guys, Bogosian and Eriksson Ek. Didn't really get too much of an answer. He's hoping that they can progress and skate on their own here in the coming days and see if they can maybe make a return against the Jets on Thursday. But he mentioned day to day. For all we know, that means they're out the rest of the season. Like it's like that's obviously a little
Eriksson Ek
extreme,
skated,
but
which I guess is good news. We'll see, because of course then once he skates, you have to see how that goes.
yeah.
But yeah, he is absolutely instrumental, and Ryan Hartman has scored goals, so this is not to denigrate his play.
And that was a
but
good tip last night. That was a
It
really
was
good
a heck
tip.
of a tip. Yeah, but
You know
when
what it was actually? It was another missed shot going well wide that he directed to the net.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
good for him.
But when you take Eriksson Ek off his line, and when you take him out of the faceoff equation, it weakens this team. It's why he is one of the top players that I'm the most concerned about at the Olympics, because if something happens there again, I don't think you have any shot. Like Colorado and Dallas are tough enough if you're at full strength, and you can have guys out here and there. But Eriksson Ek, to me, especially playoff wise, that's a non-starter. So if you don't have him, you're in huge trouble. I'm looking at the recent play of Kirill Kaprizov, and curious to get your thoughts on this. I've just counted 13 games and 3 goals in his past 13 games. What's your thought there? Because I will say this, I haven't noticed him consistently as much as I ordinarily do. And look, he's a great player. It's a long season. Guys go through slumps. But have you found yourself wanting more in the last, 15 games or so from Kirill Kaprizov?
It's been weird because I've been kind of noticing because we've had some listeners who've actually pointed this out too, who've said like, "Hey, I need 97 to start doing 97 things," and I get those messages mid game, and then it seems like 5 minutes later, oh, he scores from a really low angle, and it's like, okay, well, there you go. He served it up on a platter for you. But yeah, it's there's times during the games where he gets the puck on a rush, and even if it's an even strength rush, like a 3-on-3 instead of like an odd man, I'm like, okay, you should probably work some Kirill magic here and do something, and then he just doesn't. And granted, he shouldn't. I think he's a fantastic player, but even the best players in the world can't just turn it on easy rookie mode like it's NHL and just walk through and score every single time.
Hmm.
But we're we're seeing less of those like major chances, and last night was I think more of a frustrating thing for the entire team because they did like 95% of the work, and then this is where it goes back to like that extra pass. They keep trying to make that extra pass, and crazy enough, that one goes off a stick. That one gets intercepted. That one gets deflected, or the shot whiffs because it's a chip pass and all. If I think if they simplified the game, one, everybody would look a little bit better. But two, when it comes to Kirill Kaprizov, you're going to expect him to still make those flashy plays, and I think I'm waiting for a little more of that. And he's probably a guy that will benefit from not having to go to the Olympics as much as anybody. He's going to get essentially a 3-week break where hopefully one anything fatigue wise because it's a lot of hockey, but Matt Boldy has said this where it's like everybody's doing the same thing. Everybody's got the same Olympic break, so like everybody else should be just as fatigued as we are. And I as blunt, I think blunt as Matt Boldy is when it comes to like his answers in post game scrums, I fully agree with him there. Yeah, everybody is playing the same thing, so I don't know if that's the best excuse for a guy like Kirill, where he's a top, whatever player in the world. He should be just fine. Um, but I'm expecting him to probably generate more here, and I don't know whether that is something where he's just he's burnt out, and they do need this 2 day break. You're off on Tuesday, you're off on Wednesday, you're back, and you have a game that should be a pedestal for like a big resurgence in everybody's play against the worst team in the league right now, the Winnipeg Jets, or maybe there's something else going on. I'm not sure, but yes, I'd long-winded way of saying I would like to see more from Kirill, but at the same time, I think he's doing just enough to where it's putting those nerves of mine maybe at ease that something is wrong. Like he's doing just enough, but at the same time, it's Kirill Kaprizov, so I think the bar should be a lot higher than everybody else.
Yeah, three goals in 13 games is weird for him, I guess. And,
Yeah.
I mean, for most guys, you'd be like, okay, whatever. But yeah, it. I have noticed, and watching the game again last night, there are bigger stretches than usual where I don't see him, which is weird.
Mhm.
So like, if he doesn't score, that's one thing. But 97 ordinarily does 97 type of things, and I don't think he's doing that as much. So yeah, not necessarily a cause for concern. And look, this team was going to regress somewhat. We knew that. I just don't like the fact that I feel like they're getting away from some of the main tenets that make them successful. So that's the thing that and John Hines, it was funny in his post game. You could tell he was annoyed. Like he's
Yeah.
very reluctant to bring up what, like, he'll say we didn't have our jam or something like that, but he doesn't really point out the specifics, or he doesn't really go into detail. But the tone of his voice and his demeanor tell a whole story, and you could tell he was annoyed because the Devils were coming in. I mean, they've been reeling. They've been absolutely
They have the worst record in hockey
awful.
since November 29th.
Yeah, and they had just lost to the Winnipeg Jets, who are also not good.
Mhm.
And Jacob Markstrom, the last time that he had been in goal, he gave up 9 goals on 24 shots and didn't get pulled against the Islanders. And then he played last night and looked good. And to what you'd said, the fact that they couldn't hit the broadside of the barn in the first period with the puck was a problem too. So I think John Hines, I think that was one of those ones where he's not going to certainly go off. He's not going to point fingers, but if you listen to the tone of his voice, it tells a lot more of the story than what he said. Hey, I just want to talk briefly about our friends at SeatGeek, because you know what? You can catch a Wild, a Wolves, heck, any concert in town, Broadway show, things like that. And you can do it with the best deals on tickets from SeatGeek. Over 35 million downloads. SeatGeek, by the way, the #1 rated ticketing app. Each ticket is rated on a scale of 1 to 10, so you know that you're going to get a good deal. Use the promo code or the code JUDD10, JUDD10, for 10% off your next set of tickets at SeatGeek. That's 10% off any tickets with the code JUDD, JUDD10, and be enjoying the next big event that you want to see through our friends at SeatGeek. What did you think? Because it was a fairly extended time. It didn't work, but what did you think of? I think one of the longer stretches of any period in which we've seen Matt Boldy at center. So in the third period, in desperately trying to get an offensive spark before the Devils buried the Wild last night, Boldy was put at center with Kaprizov and Zuccarello. And we've talked about this quite a bit. And without Eriksson Ek, it does become something that I think we at least need to talk about, and at least something that John Hines is open to. So your thoughts on Matt Boldy at center?
Well, he won the second most amount of faceoffs on the team last night. He took 6. He won 5. So that's pretty darn good.
Okay.
The only guy who won more, they took more, was Nico Sturm, who won 7 and lost 5 last night. But it was one of those things where I noticed it, and I think it was a shift. It was the second shift that he had been moved to center before I noticed it, and it was after keeping an eye out for it, I think he played it all right. Like he's clearly not a natural center, but he does have that, I guess, the light switch in his mind of I can shift from thinking I'm a wing to thinking I'm a center. He didn't look out of position at times, but there is a learning curve there, I'm sure, and it's weird to probably make that shift of you played however many hundreds of minutes at the wing so far this season, and now because Eriksson Ek is out, you're asking him to do a different job. It's not a concern of mine right now. Like I was definitely more pleased than I was.
I'm more curious
disgusted.
Yeah.
But I would like to see more. Like I would like to see maybe a full period or two. And this is where, if you look at like where he was last night, they had that top line of Johansson, Hartman, Boldy, and then the second line of Kaprizov, Yurov, and Zuccarello. I would be fine if you put Matt Boldy, if you wanted to, between Kaprizov and Zuccarello, just to start the game and try to overwhelm the Jets. Just really top load that front line, especially if Eriksson Ek is out. If he's back, then this is a completely different talking point. But if Eriksson Ek is back, I would be fine with them front loading that top line, challenging the Jets, and trying to say we're going to get a lead early, and then we'll change our game plan based off that. But I want to see more. I want to see more because he didn't look incapable by any means. He looked very capable, and there were some bright spots in that game.
Yeah, and that does also goes back to, and we've certainly been talking about this for a while, it goes back to showing you how thin this team is, and if Eriksson Ek is out there, basically, I mean, it's, if you look at that position, and I know the problem is this: every team that's a contender, and there's a bunch that aren't, but every team that's a contender, seemingly could use at least a 2C, right?
Yeah.
And so this is going to be difficult. I mean, the price point's going to be huge, but I don't see how you beat either of the top 2 teams above you in the playoffs without making a pretty substantial addition at center. And it's going to cost you, and it still might not work. But when we're talking about Boldy at center, I mean, it, like last night, I'm just watching the depth without Eriksson Ek in there, and it's non-existent for the most part. Like, it's just non-existent. And so, Boldy's such a talented player that I can see why John Hines is toying with the idea, because I don't really think he has a choice at this point. I don't look around and say, well, hold on a second. Yurov, I really do like him, and I think he belongs for sure. And if Eriksson Ek is playing, him between Zuccarello and Kaprizov, I think does work. But when you're missing Ek, and by the way, I say this because this is unfortunate to say, In a playoff series, Eriksson Ek, you have to have him, but the dude gets hurt a lot. And
Yeah.
so at that point in time, can Boldy shift to center? If you get one, does that make up for the difference? Like that's my primary concern is if a guy like Eriksson Ek was just an Iron Man too, and look, he's hurt. Like the dude gets hurt. It's legit. He is not there. I'm not questioning that for 1 second, but his absence is so huge, and his absence is at times unfortunately feels, especially like in a playoff series, that he's going to miss a shift here or two or a game here or two. So I think among the teams that, if they want to advance, have to get a center, the Wild is near the top of that list. And I should say this, of the teams that have a chance to advance legitimately. Like I'm sure there's some teams that are like, oh yeah, we're going to get a center. It's like, okay, that's great. I don't know you're going to advance.
Yeah.
But that's where the Boldy conversation, I think, actually does come into being a real discussion. Is that an option? What does that do? Can he play that spot, especially in pressure situations? Just a lot of things, but I certainly can see why John Hines is it appears, at least right now, giving it some serious thought.
There was a conversation, I think, to be had where it's like, do they want to get a center? Do they want to get a winger? Like,
Yeah,
what's the top scorer?
That's over.
This injury, like, it was, I think, in my mind, pretty well lit, like the path you should walk. This injury to Eriksson Ek and now him missing 2 games, I think eliminates that other path completely.
I think you're right.
I don't even care if it's a 50 goal scoring winger. I need to see a center. I have to see a center on this team because let's say even Eriksson Ek is that Iron Man, and let's just say he doesn't get hurt. Yeah. You're still pretty thin there. Like,
yes, you are.
And think about the depth. Like, I think Yurov is. You're right. He belongs. He looks like he belongs. But the thing is, he's also, what is he, 22?
Right. Exactly.
I think if we were talking about his game in 4 years when he's 26, he might be a top center. Right. He might be a 1.5 center. He might be, right now, if you acquire a center who you can put on that top line, centering Kaprizov and Zuccarello, you have that second line with newly found health, Joel Eriksson Ek, and then that third line is centered by Danila Yurov. That's a really good 1-2-3 center combo, and then Nico Sturm's running out the fourth with his face-off prowess. That actually changes, I think, in my mind, a lot of how this team would be structured and built, and the lines would be set up to actually really succeed. I can't fathom an argument now to where you think a top 6 winger supersedes the need to add somebody in the middle.
Yeah, and look, like they could use that too. But if you are going through your priority list, I think now, to what you're saying, I agree completely. It's crystal clear. Like it's center, winger. And if you could get, a Tuck, which Buffalo is playing great now. In fact, I think
lost last night.
The Wild plays well. They've still been playing. I think they've lost a couple of games of late. But I believe that the Wild plays there on Saturday. But the fact is, when you look at this now, it's like you have to have some insurance there. And if Ek is healthy, it's still going to help you. Worst case or best case of health, there might come a time where Hartman has to play some wing again, but that's absolutely fine. So yeah, there's just I think Eriksson Ek's absence, as short as it's been, and hopefully it won't be much longer, has cleared up to what you're saying, the question mark. You have to go get a center. And if it can be a 1C, that's fine. At the very least, a 2C. Or else you've done a lot of work. You've built a really good team, and I don't think you got a snowball's chance in hell against the Avs or perhaps the Stars, but the Avs for sure without doing exactly that. All right, we are done. Back tomorrow with Jesse Pierce, Judd's Hockey Show. Don't forget, like and subscribe to the new channel. For all of you who have found us here, much appreciated. Tell your family, tell your friends, tell your pets. I don't care who you tell. Just tell somebody or something. He's AJ. I'm Judd. We'll talk to you later.